What you're watching isn't some movie trickery. It's a real truck crossing a real bridge over a river in the middle of the jungle.
This is the wrong road!
It was possible to get these shots in a safer way. They just chose not to. And that's because this 1977 film, made by the man who directed The Exorcist, is so committed to realism, filming it very nearly ended in disaster. And having come out in the summer of that same year, at the same time that a certain low-budget sci-fi flick happened to hit the big screens, disaster is a theme which stuck around, not just during production, but for every single part of its cinematic existence. This is the story of William Friedkin Sorcerer.
We're carrying 3 cases each. 1 is enough to blow your fire. 6 cases will blow out the whole field. That means you don't think all the trucks will make it. One of us is a backup.
But first, let's set the scene. The year is 1974, and William Friedkin has quickly become one of the shining stars of the new Hollywood movement. The cinematic renaissance which brought about a significant chunk of the films we still haven't stopped talking about today.
You talking to me?
Friedkin himself has already won an Oscar for The French Connection, and is fresh off the heels of The Exorcist. But there's something particular you need to understand about Friedkin, because it's the crux of pretty much everything that's about to happen.
Film directors of my generation were film student geeks, and I never went to a film school, and so I never became part of that film school generation.
He instead began his career in the mailing room of a Chicago television station.
I would have continued to do that until I saw Citizen Kane when I was 21, and then my ambition to become a film director took hold.
But even then, he did not initially gravitate towards directing fiction.
I didn't realize that I could use a documentary style in film until I saw the film by Costa Gavras called Zen. That was the film that said to me, it is possible to use documentary technique in a fictional story.
This obsession with reality was an instinct that never quite left Friedkin. The infamous car chase in The French Connection was filmed in authentic, entirely unaware New York traffic, and on the set of The Exorcist he would routinely fire real guns to get genuine reactions out of the actors. He was a filmmaker who believed that the camera could tell a difference between what was real and what was performed. Therefore, when he decided that his next film would be set in a jungle, you bet he went to the jungle. And it is this belief which stands at the center of why the filming of Sorcerer went quite so wrong.
Si je dois faire un macabé, autant que ce soit un macabé présentable.
The Wages of Fear is a 1953 French film, a highly respected adaptation of a novel of the same name. It's a thriller about 4 desperate men stranded in a South American village, forced to take on a suicide mission, to drive 2 trucks full of nitroglycerin through 200 miles of jungle. If they move too fast, it detonates. If they move too slow, they will not make it before the oil well the nitro is supposed to extinguish burns out entirely. Now Friedkin read the novel, saw the film, and he wanted to do it again.
I never considered it a remake. There must be well over 50 million productions of Hamlet. Any version of Hamlet is not a remake. It's another version, another vision.
The budget for Sorcerer was initially set at a pretty modest $2.5 million. Even as it was being developed though, it had already ballooned up to around $12 million. Given his resume, he did get the money, but a lot was on the line. And now the film needed a star. Ideally, someone whose shoulders could carry the story, and whose face could carry the marketing. Enter Steve McQueen, the biggest movie star of his day, and one of the highest paid actors of the 1970s. And what's more, someone who loved the idea for the film.
We wrote the script for Steve McQueen. The minute we had our first draft, I sent it to Steve, and he called me, and he said, this is the best script I've ever read. I'll do this. But you've got to do certain things for me.
It was a condition of McQueen's that his new wife, Ali McGraw, would join him, given the prospect of a multiple-month-long shoot in the jungle. But there was no role for a woman in the film, and Friedkin didn't believe in the associate producer title, and so he refused. Friedkin then tried to offer the role to other heavy hitters, including Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson, but neither of them were willing to spend half a year in the jungle.
To me, the flaw in Sorcerer is the casting of Roy Scheider. He's not bad in the movie, he's not the actor the movie needs. And it's more the fact that the movie needed bigger shoulders. to place this type of an epic on.
Roy Scheider was available. He had just recently done Jaws. I had worked with him in The French Connection.
But there was some issue in The Exorcist, correct?
Oh, well, no, he wanted to do The Exorcist, but the guy who wrote it didn't think he was sympathetic. And I sort of agreed with it.
This certainly did not help tensions, but still, the film had its lead and the production could move ahead. But first we must address the matter of the location. Initially, Friedkin wanted to shoot in Ecuador. Not only did he feel the jungle looked perfect for what he envisioned, it was also where he first saw the peculiar signs and names painted on the trucks. This is what went on to inspire the design of the vehicles in the film. The studio refused though, and the shoot ended up happening partly in Mexico, but mostly in the Dominican Republic.
The man who owned Paramount then was a Viennese man named Charlie Bludor. He owned a good portion of the Dominican Republic. And he said, if you'll shoot the portion of your film that's in the jungle, I have that in the Dominican Republic, and I'll co-finance the film, or I'll finance the whole film.
The shooting itself was, by all accounts, absolute hell, and the trouble began even before they got to shooting the trucks. The film has 4 prologues, all of which were shot in their actual countries and locations: Mexico, Jerusalem, Paris, and New Jersey. So by this point, the budget had already been revised to 15 million. And while filming the explosion scene in Jerusalem, the mock explosion they detonated was so powerful it shattered a window of the mayor's house and injured the stuntman handling the explosive. Yet that's nothing compared to what happened in the jungle. In an interview with the New York Times, Roy Scheider stated that what they did during Sorcerer made Jaws look like a picnic. Around 50 members of the crew contracted gangrene and other serious illnesses and had to be evacuated. Friedkin himself actually contracted malaria, but he never left because he was only diagnosed after the film had premiered. And then there was the bridge.
The bridge scene, which is one of the most difficult scenes I think that may ever have been filmed.
It is a 12-minute long, nerve-wracking sequence in which both of the trucks slowly cross a rope suspension bridge.
The bridge scene is just one of the great suspense moments in cinema. It's one of the great filming of sequences.
In that same interview with the New York Times, Scheider stated that this was the most dangerous scene he'd ever shot.
It wasn't done through special effects. It wasn't fake. It was by really doing it.
Were there stuntmen or were there the actors?
There's no opticals in the film. The actors are, when you see them driving the trucks, they're driving the trucks.
Now, they could have done it on a soundstage, as would have been the industry standard at the time. However, by now, I'm sure you've understood that's simply not how William Friedkin did things. The bridge itself was an elaborate structure which looked rickety and collapsing, but concealed a hydraulic system that controlled its movements. Just constructing it cost around $1 million and took 3 months. But as the construction went on, the river began to dry, and by the time it was time to shoot, the river essentially dried up entirely. The bridge was completely disassembled and transported, and production shut down entirely for about a month while the crew regrouped, with all principal actors and key crew kept on payroll. A month later, they reassembled the bridge, choosing a river in Mexico. And the exact same thing happened. The river began to dry up again. Before they were ready to start shooting, the river had dropped to a stagnant pool of less than 2 feet, but there was no way they could do it again. And so, Friedkin had to make do. They manipulated the river to make the section flow faster and brought in large sprinklers, which added the rainstorm. The rain actually wasn't even part of the original concept, but it was the only way to make the shallow water look violent. Nevertheless, even with shallower waters, the filming itself was still extremely dangerous.
Many times both trucks fell into the water, and we had to pick them up. I was in the truck when it went into the water.
In the end, no one got seriously hurt, but that single sequence took around 4 months to finish, and the total cost of it was over $3 million. As for the whole film, the production took around 10 months and ended up with a final price tag of $22 million. This might not seem like much today, but for the time, both of these figures were pretty extreme. But this was a William Friedkin film. Surely they would make it all back and then some.
Scheinberg said to me, "How much do you think we're going to do?" And The Exorcist by then had taken in $100 million domestic. And I thought this was a better film than The Exorcist. I remember saying to him, but I think it'll take it maybe $90 million. And he said, yeah, it's great. And they then set out plans to distribute it.
On May 25th, 1977, exactly a month before Sorcerer was supposed to premiere, a little film called Star Wars hit the big screens. Due to low expectations from the studios, it was originally supposed to remain at Mann's Chinese Theater, the same one where Sorcerer was to be screened, for only 2 weeks. And so, on June 24th, Sorcerer had its debut.
It maybe ran for a couple of weeks in America. Star Wars came out like a juggernaut and took everything.
The film ended up making about 5.9 million domestically and 9 million worldwide. Including marketing costs, it needed closer to about 45 just to break even.
I always read the film critic for the Los Angeles Times, who was a good friend of mine. His name was Charles Champlin. His review of Sorcerer began with the phrase, "What went wrong?" I thought it would be a great review because Champlin loved everything I ever did. He completely took the picture apart, and that echoed what all of the other critics around the country did.
Sorcerer was quickly forgotten. A disastrous financial performance and terrible reviews, and what's more, a split financing between Paramount and Universal, which meant they couldn't agree on who owned the rights to the film. Not because they both wanted it, but because both of them wanted to stay away from it. Years later, when Friedkin asked about a DVD release, both studios told him they didn't own the rights. It was only in 2012, when Friedkin simultaneously sued both studios, that they came to an agreement. And after 35 years, Friedkin finally supervised a full 4K restoration. The new print premiered at Venice Film Festival on August 29th, 2013, Friedkin's 78th birthday.
I would like now to just briefly introduce you to the film that you're going to see now. It's the film of mine that I'm proudest of because it's the film that came closest to the vision that I had. If I had the opportunity, I would change all of my films, but not this film. This is the one film that I've made that I would not change a frame of.
I suppose it's pretty obvious that a film like Sorcerer couldn't be made today. Certainly not with the backing of a major studio. Even films which rely heavily on practical effects and have productions which are difficult and even somewhat hazardous, they don't really come close to what happened in that jungle. But back then, people didn't really care. Realism and grit weren't elements which were lacking in films, and so Friedkin taking them to the extreme didn't really impress anyone.
May I have this dance?
Until the end of his life, Friedkin maintained that he didn't really care about the fact that Sorcerer had become so widely beloved, that the initial wound of his masterpiece being torn down and forgotten was too deep, that the present had no bearing on the wounds of the past. But what is unambiguously true is that if you go watch Sorcerer today, I think you will understand what Friedkin saw when he made it. You will feel the tension and the sweat and the dirt and the nitroglycerin of it all, and you will be exactly where he was all those years ago, seeing his best work now through the perspective of an age where reality isn't a given. You can see the film for what it really is. A masterclass in what only real filmmaking can create. And although Friedkin himself saw fate as an evil sorcerer, I would like to think that, in the end, it did smile upon him. My name is Samuel Mračka, and thank you for watching this essay. If you'd like to see more, feel free to subscribe.